Football on the Big Ten Network is powered by Unleaded 88. A packed house, a sellout crowd at Spartan Stadium in East Lansing as Michigan State welcomes the 3-0 Minnesota Golden Gophers. The Spartans ready to make the tunnel walk, coming off a loss last week, dropping out of the rankings, and hungry today to get revenge against Minnesota. Mel Tucker walking his crew toward the field here at Spartan Stadium. First time that Michigan State has hosted Minnesota since 2013. These two teams don't play very often. Last time they met was in Minnesota. That was in 2017. And with that, we welcome you up to the booth, everybody. He's Joshua Perry. I'm Brandon Gaudin. You got a 2-1 Michigan State team. I mentioned they lost last week out at Washington, fell out of the rankings. They were number 11. They fell all the way out of the rankings. You got a Minnesota team, Joshua, that's 3-0, but a lot of people are saying, yeah, but they beat New Mexico State, Western Illinois, Colorado, but they've done it convincingly. But no doubt this is their first big test today.
That is the case right there. It's their first big test. As you look at this Minnesota team, they've looked good, both offensively and defensively. I don't expect anything to change for them, but, I mean, we're talking about a team that's going to see the best personnel that they've seen so far. So Mohamed Ibrahim, is going to be the guy that they're going to roll with as you see these guys running out the tunnel. Great atmosphere right here. But they got to get that game going on the ground. That's what they've done, and that's what they need to continue to do.
Well, Joshua, you mentioned it, Mohamed Ibrahim. He really is the straw that stirs the proverbial drink for the Golden Gophers.
They get it started on the ground. That's their MO, and Mo is the guy who's going to get the bulk of the carries. And one thing that stands out on tape about what he does is he gets the ball at the mesh point, and he is straight downhill, unabated until he gets to the second level a lot of times. And that's a really hard tackle for a defender to make. I expect them to come out with that same game plan today.
Yeah, they want to run the ball. They've done it 70% of the time so far through 3 games. Now, for Michigan State, I mentioned that loss out at Washington. It was how they lost. They really got burnt in the secondary. A lot of Michigan State Spartan fans are curious to see how they will respond today.
And Mel Tucker talked about how he liked the fight in his team in the second half, but he didn't think the toughness was consistent enough. So the toughness is where it's going to start, and it's going to be in the trenches. When you look offensively, they have to get that movement up front to create some of those running lanes. And, of course, they have to protect their quarterback in Peyton Thorne. But when you flip it over to the defensive line, I just mentioned Mo Ibrahim and what he does in the run game. They have to build a wall early there, but also getting some pressure on Tanner Morgan is going to help out that secondary that struggle.
Injury updates on both sides to be given, and for that we go downstairs to Rick Peasville.
No question, Brandon. Each of these teams bitten by the injury bug early in the season. Minnesota will play today for the first time this season without leading wide receiver Chris Autman-Bell. Had season-ending surgery earlier this week. Michigan State's defense missing 3 playmakers once again. Darius Snow, Jacob Slade, Xavier Henderson all out. There is good news for Michigan State on the offensive side. Wide receiver Jaden Reed, who missed the loss to Washington with a back injury, will play today. He was a full participant in warm-ups, looked really good. He's wearing a little bit of extra protection in that lower back area, but he is fully good to go. Running back Jalen Berger was banged up during that Washington game. Mel Tucker told us he didn't even practice this week until Friday. He is also expected to play, but was a bit more limited during warm-ups, so expect Jarek Broussard to get the bulk of the carries in that Michigan State backfield. And if Berger is truly limited, really on a pitch count, the extra carries would go to Elijah Collins.
And that'll certainly be something that Mel Tucker will be tracking closely. We talked about Minnesota and their desire to run the ball. Mel Tucker in his third season here at the helm of this Spartan program. He wants to get that ground game going as well. That's something they talked about this week. And he's opposed by P.J. Fleck, 0-3 against Michigan State. Lost twice here as the head coach of Western Michigan. And I said it, but the only other time that he's faced him was 2017, the last meeting between these two programs. Don't forget to download the Fox Weather app, bringing you this temperature, humidity, and wind. 60 degrees, cloudy, but no moisture in the air. It's a pleasant day for football.
Feels like football weather.
Michigan State won the toss. Minnesota will receive it. A sellout crowd of 75,000 on hand. And the Big Ten opener for the Gophers and the Spartans. Off we go from East Lansing. A high kick from Stone and a fair catch from Quentin Redding. Our first look at Tanner Morgan and the 3-0 Minnesota Golden Gophers. Tanner Morgan, he has been around for a long time. 43rd career start, those 30 wins, most by an active FBS quarterback.
And he's taken a big step so far this year. We've seen the connection with the wide receiver group. He's a quarterback that's in rhythm. He's seeing the game really well, and he's playing with a lot of confidence right now.
3 touchdowns last week in the win against Colorado. His first 3-touchdown game actually since 2019. And now he looks to carry that momentum forward here on the road in Big Ten play. Faking the give to Ibrahim and starting out through the air and completing it to the outside. And Michael Brown-Stevens, so a team that runs it 70% of the time. They're without their top receiver, but they throw it first here.
And they've watched the tape that everybody else has watched. Michigan State obviously with struggles in the secondary, so it makes sense that they want to come out and maybe test what the pass game looks like. But they're going to go right back to that run game. It's going to be a good mix today.
11 yards for a first down. Talked about that Michigan State secondary. They got torched last week by Indiana transfer Michael Penix out of Washington. Now it's Ibrahim. And Ibrahim is stopped. That defensive front for Michigan State stacking him up for no gain. Minnesota, in addition to Ibrahim, don't forget they've got a very good offensive line just like they did last year.
The guys on the offensive line really stand out to me, and you'll watch them all day long. They play really, really well together. In terms of moving as one unit, I think that's very important. They need to create that separation up front so Mo can have some running lanes.
The center is the leader, John Michael Schmitz, 6-year senior, snapping the football to Tanner Morgan today. On 2nd and 10, a play fake. Morgan with all kinds of time, and he's able to complete it right near midfield to Dalen Wright, the redshirt junior.
This is going to be an important game for Dalen Wright. I mean, Chris Ottman-Bell is out. You're going to see in the secondary here, defensive back just falls down. These are the types of mistakes that they can't have, but right over the middle of the field, that safety was there ultimately to make the tackle, but Michigan State early on is going to have to challenge some of these passes.
Offensive coordinator Kirk Shiraka mentioned without Ottman-Bell, done to the ACL injury, it was going to be by committee. So far, we've seen Brown, Stevens, and Wright with receptions on the opening drive. Morgan to the air again. And that one is incomplete. Trying to find his tight end, Brevin Span-Ford. Angelo Gross, one of the starting safeties in this Spartan defense.
And those safeties are going to have a lot of pressure on them today. Want to keep them close to the line of scrimmage for that Minnesota run game. But again, Minnesota showing early on that they're not afraid to test them in the back end. Their eye discipline is going to be key here. They have to read their keys and believe what they're seeing.
And on the back end, Justin White getting the start at nickel in place of Chester Kimbrough, the senior who had some struggles last week out at Washington. Movement up front, our first flag, less than 2 minutes in. Wearing the white hat, Jeff Servinski.
False start. offense, number 65. 5-yard penalty, second down.
So back him up. That one is against Axel Rushmeyer, another 6-year senior veteran for PJ Fleck's team. Second and 15. Here's Ibrahim. And able to break free. Mo Ibrahim doing what he does best. Eventually run out of bounds by Kendall Brooks. But he runs through people. He thrives on contact. Such a good running back.
And I was talking about creating these lanes up front. You're going to see that the defensive line, the linebackers all get on different levels, and it creates a seam for Mo Ibrahim to run through. And then as he gets up on the second level, I said in the open, this guy is so hard to tackle as he's running unabated to the second level. Like those guys, you can't bring this man down. This is going to be a challenge because they're getting hit with both the pass and the run early on.
Last week, over 200 yards in the win against Colorado. Fourth 200-yard rushing performance for the senior Ibrahim. That is a Minnesota record. He got 21 on the last play. They fake it to him here, and they throw it complete to Clay Geary. So you see all the different targets. Tanner Morgan is getting involved early, Joshua.
Yeah, it's going to be important for those different targets to get comfortable. One of the things that Kirk Ciarrocca, the offensive coordinator for Minnesota, said to us was that his thought process now is how many ways can you cut this pie, and then how do you divvy that up to the players out there. So you see early on, everybody's kind of getting their feel for the game. They're getting the reception spread out.
Already 4 plays of 10 or more yards for Kirk Ciarrocca's offense here on the opening drive. Potts comes into the backfield, replacing Ibrahim. And it will be Trey Potts with his first carry. Great change-up back to Muhammad Ibrahim. A gain of 5 as we get the Auto Owners Insurance Impact players.
Muhammad Ibrahim, I already talked about him, just what he brings in that run game they're going to need to rely on all day. Dalen Wright is going to have a big day, too, with Chris Ottman-Bell out, and we've seen him featured in this game plan, but Jacoby Windman up front has to be a feature in the run game, but can he get after the passer? And Charles Brantley. In this secondary, they've struggled, but he's a guy who's really competitive back there.
Ibrahim back in there, he'll get it, but he's not going anywhere. Cal Halliday, you talked about him, Joshua. Very good middle linebacker, loss of 3 on the play.
And Cal Halliday, you're going to see him right here as a very aggressive linebacker. Scotty Hazelton, the defensive coordinator for Michigan State, told us that he loves to be able to run through these gaps and create havoc. That's something that needs to be a feature today for Michigan State. Can you take the fight to this Minnesota front?
3rd and 8. Gophers excellent so far this year on 3rd down. Tanner Morgan over the middle, caught, span forward, the tight end, 1st and goal Gophers. Gain of 18. They love that tight end and what they have in him.
Yeah, and Spanford is a guy who stood out on tape to me because his movement skill at his size is pretty crazy. And Michigan State felt like they could play some single coverage, maybe put a safety on a tight end that big, and it's still a mismatch.
This drive over 5 minutes, looking to cap it off. Ibrahim powers his way in for the touchdown. And for Mo Ibrahim, it's a record breaker. His 41st rushing touchdown in his career. And he now stands alone at the top of the list in Minnesota rushing history. The Mo-ometer as he passes Darrell Thompson, who he was tied with at the number 40 after last week's performance. I don't know that there's much more that he could accomplish or that you can say about Muhammad Ibrahim. And the extra point is good. A 5-minute, 10-second drive.
And I've talked about this direct sprint straight from the mesh point. Credit the offensive line right there, letting Mo Ibrahim get downhill. And then as he gets up on that second level, he's looking to run through somebody, is able to hit pay dirt.
Mo Ibrahim giving Minnesota the early lead. 41st touchdown, so he breaks the rushing touchdown record. Now he's 2 behind Darryl Thompson for the overall record for touchdowns in Minnesota history. Darryl is the radio analyst for Minnesota Star in the late 80s, and it's pretty good company to be in, huh?
It is pretty good company to be in. Mo Ibrahim rewriting the record books, and he's a guy who deserves it for as hard as he's worked, especially bouncing back from that injury.
Yeah, last year, first game against Ohio State, tore the Achilles. Didn't know if he'd be back, but he is back and better than ever. So now, with Minnesota up 7-0 after such a fantastic drive, how will Peyton Thorne and company respond? Thorne, the second-year starter, who, even though it was a loss last week at Washington, they felt like he played a really good game.
And he's a guy, again, who they want to see continued growth from. I think the biggest thing for him is actually setting his feet and his mechanics so he can deliver an on-target football. But knowing the looks, being able to identify visuals out there on the field, he does that very well.
Those 30 completions last week, a career high in the loss to the Huskies. And it is Broussard in the backfield getting the first carry. Again, as Rick reported, Jalen Berger dinged up, but he was out there warming up. They don't know how much he'll be able to contribute today. Broussard gets the first opportunity, 1 yard. Tossing it out, Broussard, the Colorado transfer, gets it out to the 29. That'll bring up third down as we get a peek at the starting lineup here offensively for Michigan State.
One of the groups that stands out from Michigan State to me is this tight end group. You got Daniel Barker, who is a very athletic guy that they use in multiple ways, and then they roll out there with Tyler Hunt, who's a guy who's more of an inline blocker, but when he gets out in space, he can make some plays too. I think they should utilize them as a chess piece in this matchup.
They feel very good about that tight end room. They're going to need 6 yards here. Thorne, some work to do after the catch by Jaden Reed, and he's going to be short. That'll bring up fourth down. And here comes the punting unit. So a little surprised they threw it underneath, but Minnesota was there. They rallied quickly. It's
a swarming defense. It's one of the things that they want to do is once the ball is thrown, everybody's attacking to the football. And we've seen it pop up on tape in the first 3 games. Step up in personnel here doesn't matter. It's the same mentality for them.
Silver lining for Michigan State is seeing Jaden Reed out there again after missing last week with that lower back injury. But they have to settle for a punt. Quentin Redding with a short return before he's brought down shy of the 25-yard line. Great start for Minnesota in their first game on the road, and their star Mo Ibrahim. Early lead for Minnesota. They'll get the football back here mid-first quarter. Next Saturday, we're all Big Ten all morning. Big Ten Tailgate presented by Range Rover Sport, coming to you from Minneapolis next Saturday, 10 a.m. Eastern on the Big Ten Network. Tailgate lots were full today here outside Spartan Stadium, but so far, the Gophers have silenced the crowd. At first drive, they had 5 plays of 10 or more yards by 5 different players. Tanner Morgan getting everybody involved. Again with a clean pocket, and Morgan delivers a perfect ball to Brevin Spanford, the tight end, for a gain of 17. Let's go down to Rick.
Brandon, Tanner Morgan not just off to a great start, but showing why his experience pays such dividends. I was listening in as he talked with Kirk Shiraka upstairs after that last drive, and as he interacted with his offensive line. I learned he audibled out of at least one play and changed the protection on another. Both resulted in first downs. And remember, most teams script the first 10 or 15 plays. That's how much trust they have in this guy at that quarterback position.
5th-year starter, 23 years old. And he hands it off this time. Now, much there for Mo Ibrahim, maybe 1 yard. But what a luxury to have Tanner Morgan. It's rare that you get a second-year starter these days, let alone a guy in his fifth-year starter.
There's a lot of maturity on that offense. You mentioned the experience up front as well, but Tanner Morgan, one of the things I keep going back to is when you flip on the tape of him, you can tell that he's seeing the game extremely well, which means that the coaching is clear for him too. So for him to go out there, make those adjustments, that's exactly where you want your veteran quarterback to be.
Play clock dwindling. Takes a handoff. Another good throw at midfield, caught for a first down. And there's Michael Brown-Stevens again. PJ Fleck said we need him to be the leader of that wide receiver room with Ottman Bell out. He's got a couple of catches early.
You see the pass right here is good pass, blitz pickup by Mo Ibrahim as well, but a little bit high, not necessarily on target, but a huge window that he's throwing into. Michigan State trying to keep some of these safeties away from the box a little bit, and they're trying to figure this rhythm out of how much you want to contribute to the run versus how much you want to protect your secondary, and Minnesota's got their pick of the litter right now.
They will work that play clock. You see how often Tanner Morgan claps his hands and then checks with the sideline. Here it's Ibrahim up the middle for 3. But it has been a great start already. 7 plays of 10 or more yards for Minnesota.
I mean, this early on in the game, that's a staggering number. I think it speaks to where this defense is right now for Michigan State. And part of it is they have to feel through the game and what they want to be from an identity standpoint. The other thing is the players got to go out there and take control of what's going on.
They've only run 14 plays, so half of them have gone for 10 or more. 6 of those have been passes by Tanner Morgan. And there is a flag flying. Charles Brantley on the coverage of Dalen Wright, and they're going to get Brantley for interference.
You're going to see this right here. It's single coverage situation again. And Dalen Wright is such a big wide receiver, so the body presence is already tough, but trying to compete for the football, you get that contact back there. The last thing Michigan State can do is hurt themselves with penalties.
But it is a secondary eager to prove that they're improved from last year when they finished dead last in all of FBS. Yet they went 11-2 despite of that a season ago. Little shovel out to Potts. And Trey Potts with a 4-yard gain. Well, Mel Tucker talked to us yesterday. I mean, he put that secondary on notice.
Timeout for injured player.
After last week's performance against Washington. Unfortunately, right now, an injury.
Timeout on the field.
That's Chris Bogle, defensive end, the Florida transfer, who's down and will step aside. Tin Network is powered by Unleaded 88, the clean-burning fuel choice that's engine smart, earth kind. The injured player was Chris Bogle. He did walk off under his own power for the Spartans as now Minnesota faces a 2nd and 6. Ibrahim makes one miss. And look at him just take on that contact. Now a flag comes flying. It's a first down for the moment. We had 2 flags on the play. First flag came flying from the back, then the second from the side.
Personal foul. Illegal hands to the face. Offense number 0. 15-yard penalty being forced. The stop foul. 2nd down.
That's on the wide receiver Lemeki Brockington, and a break for Michigan State.
You're going to see it right there. on the left side of your screen, some hands to the face, and it's just trying to get aggressive. It's one of those penalties that, as a coach, you want to see your guys fighting out there, but you tell them you got to be smart about the way that you do it. But now you set your offense back into a long down and distance situation that you certainly don't want to be in.
So instead of 1st and 10 at the 25, now it's 2nd and 18. And out of the gun, here's Tanner Morgan. There's Span Ford again. Was the number 2 receiver before Ottman-Bell went out. Now they figured to target that tight end even more. 6 yards there, 3rd down, Joshua.
It's tough right now for the Spartans with their play calling paradigm. You know, long situation, do you heat it up a little bit, but you know that you're exposing your secondary. You don't want to play coverage because you don't want to be soft. Let them get into a field goal position. I don't know what you do here.
We'll see. You see the yardage difference so far. Minnesota's dominated. They need 12 yards. Morgan is going to step up and run it and do it himself. How about Tanner Morgan? Normally just sitting back in the pocket and finding an open man, and the Red Sea parted. He took advantage for a gain of 15.
And that's just a veteran quarterback having his eyes down the field. He realizes there's a lot of single coverage. Guys are in man-to-man. They don't have eyeballs back on me. Let me take this and run. It was a really smart play, a great pickup, and you keep the drive going right here.
What a play by the 6-year senior. Every time that crowd tries to get into it, the Gophers have had an answer here in the opening frame. Morgan down the sideline toward the end zone, and it is caught. Daniel Jackson, touchdown Minnesota. "23-yard connection." Daniel Jackson, who returned last week from an ankle injury. I would say the ankle looked pretty good there. What a catch.
Absolutely, what a catch. And I mean, you got a size differential right there with Brantley, who's a guy who I think is extremely competitive. He's a smaller corner, so you find the one-on-one matchup that favors the offense right there. Throw it to a high point where only the wide receiver can catch it. That's a heck of a play.
He said, yeah, I got it, and he did. First touchdown of the season for Jackson, 2nd of his career. Two drives for Minnesota, both over 5 minutes, both resulting in touchdowns. Some people have said, well, is Minnesota for real? Right now they're saying, yes, we are. Back in East Lansing, here are the impact players, brought to you by Auto Owners Insurance.
For the Spartan offense, you've got Coleman and Barker, 2 guys who present a size mismatch, and defense is going to be very hard to defend. You flip it over to Minnesota, you got Thomas Rush. He needs to create havoc up front. And Mariano Sori-Marin, a very smart, aggressive, physical, and patient linebacker.
Minnesota needs nothing to change right now. Michigan State, they've only run 3 plays. Minnesota already has 10 first downs in this game. And 19 plays run. Kesich boots it in the end zone. Last week at Washington, they really struggled out of the gates. Washington really controlled time of possession, the flow of the game, and right now that's what Minnesota's doing.
And for Michigan State's offense, one of the things that stands out to me is what they do on first down. Their first drive, they only got 1 yard. In their last game against Washington, they struggled on first down. They have to be productive on that down to give themselves some chances down the line, or else these are going to continue to be short drives.
Minnesota already has had it for over 10 minutes here in the opening quarter. Thorne over the middle, and there is Keon Coleman, who played so well last week with 9 catches and 116 yards, but he cannot bring that one in. This time on the ground, Broussard. And not much. Minnesota's run defense there, Sori Marin, you talked about him, the leader, linebacker for Minnesota, stacking him up.
This is such a swarming defense. I mean, what do you see? 6-7 hats to the football. It's a way that they want to identify themselves on tape, and it shows up every game day. And now again for Michigan State, you're in a 3rd and long situation. You had a 0-yard play on 1st down. This is what you need to avoid. They have to be able to get out of this one early on, but later on in the game, they have to find ways to be effective on 1st and 2nd down.
In the bottom left of your screen, that 3rd down defense for Minnesota has been just otherworldly good.
Timeout. Minnesota. The first of the half. 30 seconds.
PJ Fleck's going to take a timeout. We'll step aside for 30 seconds. Decent contingent of folks from the Twin Cities have made the trip east and liking what they've seen so far. Now Michigan State facing a critical early 3rd down here. Thorne dancing around, nowhere to go. He's heading down to the ground. It's a sack. Ryan Stapp, the junior, the transfer from Abilene Christian, drops him for a loss of 8. There's some boos coming in right now here at Spartan Stadium.
I mean, this is a simulated pressure that Minnesota's running, and defensive coordinator Joe Rossi told us this was going to be a part of their game plan. You see all those guys standing up by the line of scrimmage. Some guys drop out. Some guys eventually blitz, but it's only a 4-man go, and it creates a cloudy picture for the quarterback. Great execution right there, being able to make him hold it for a beat and then getting the sack.
Stapp coming on the corner blitz, gets home, and now it's a pair of 3-and-outs for this Michigan State offense. Well, their defense has to be gassed. We'll be right back in 15 seconds. Not the start Michigan State was hoping for, coming back off the loss out west, but I just said it, a couple of 3-and-outs. This Michigan State defense has to be tired here early.
And this is going to be a critical drive for the Michigan State defense. You have to get off the field early right here. So 1st down, make sure that everybody's on their assignment, but just keep driving at them or else this is going to become a long day.
Tanner Morgan, spectacular so far, 8 of 9, 110 yards and a touchdown, and another completion here to Bryce Williams. And we go to Chicago. T-Mobile Studio Update. Here's Dave Revson.
Brandon, thanks. Indiana unbeaten, but down early at Cincinnati. Ben Bryant finds a wide open Tyler Scott, 75 yards for the score. It is 10-3 Bearcats.
All right, Dave. Just a 1-yard gain on that catch by Williams, 2nd and 9. It is very rare that they get him to the ground on a 1st attempt. Let's go back down to Rick Pizzo.
Brandon, this Michigan State defense has had its manhood challenge during their recent time on the sideline. Some of the defensive coaches just ripping them apart, not meeting their assignments, not doing at all what they did during the week in practice. Mel Tucker calls that rat trap, and the coaches are asking, why aren't you guys doing the assignments we asked you to do? Exactly what you did all week during practice. You have to do your job. Don't worry about the guy next to you. We'll see if Michigan State responds. This is a huge 3rd down coming up for this defense.
PJ Fleck's going to let it wind all the way down to zeros and think about what he wants to run on 3rd and 3 to start the 2nd quarter. But the 41-year-old head coach could not be more pleased with the first 15 minutes here in a hostile environment in East Lansing. Second quarter coming up, 14-0 Minnesota. Well, both teams today are raising awareness for National Suicide Prevention Month by wearing a UG decal on their helmets. Now, those decals show support of the Gregory H. Montgomery Jr. Foundation for Ultimate Growth. Greg Montgomery, All-American punter for Michigan State, went on to become an All-Pro in the NFL. He battled bipolar disorder, unfortunately eventually succumbed to mental illness. But today, both programs showing their support for his organization. A key 3rd down to start the 2nd quarter. Ibrahim with a big hole up the middle, no problem. He needed 3, he got 6. And Minnesota is just taking the air out of the balloon here in East Lansing.
And they milk the clock between every play, too. So the longer these drives go on, the less chances that the Michigan State offense gets at possessing the ball. They want to suffocate you on both sides, and right now they are doing exactly that.
That is not a typo on your screen. It is 175-1 as far as yardage goes in favor of the Gophers. Ibrahim patient. Gets a couple out to the 42. And that is what they do. You mentioned milking the clock in between plays, and it just kind of, it's like death by 1,000 cuts if you're the defense.
Yeah, and it makes you panic at a certain point, too, because you want to make that play so you can get off of the football field, and that's exactly when Minnesota takes advantage of what you have out there. Their offensive coordinator, Kirk Shiraka, says, listen, we're an offense that takes what the defense gives us, so you have to make sure your assignment's sound and patient as well.
Taking the handoff, Morgan launches it downfield, incomplete. Is there a flag? No. He's trying to get it back to Daniel Jackson, who had the touchdown on the previous drive. 3rd and 8.
Timeout on the field for an injured player.
See some good coverage right here out of Michigan State, just getting in the way of that football. Now we got an injury.
Timeout on the field.
And unfortunately, it's Chris Bogle, the same player who was down in the first quarter, will step aside. Kevin Warren, one thing he does so well is get around to all the campuses. And today you find it here in East Lansing, taking in this big battle between Minnesota and Michigan State. Michigan State's Chris Bogle, defensive end, who went down again with injury. He was helped off with an apparent lower leg issue. He is now in the medical tent. Third down and 8, Minnesota 3 for 3 today, and almost 80% on the season on third down tries. And that ball is caught, and they convert again. Michael Brown-Stevens across the 50, and the Gophers just keep doing everything right.
I mean, Tanner Morgan just delivers such an accurate pass right here. It's a tight window. Michigan State's playing man-to-man. He's got to put it right on his wide receiver. This is great quarterbacking. This was something that was lacking the last couple of seasons for Tanner Morgan. Now you can see the confidence in his game, and it shows up with that pass right there.
And you see Brown-Stevens stepping up in the absence of Chris Ottman-Bell. Already 3 catches for him, and already 10 plays of double-digit yardage for the Gophers. Morgan again. This time to a safety valve. Ibrahim, look at him just bowling over defenders. Man, P.J. Fleck told us that he is better if you hit him, and he looks like it, doesn't he?
I mean, he's such an aggressive runner, but Tanner Morgan, again, showing his veteran presence, taking a shot down the field. He holds the ball. He sees the deep crosser, but says, no, I'm just going to check it down. I'm going to take the safe one and let my guy Mo Ibrahim go out there and make the plays that we've seen him make time and time again. Instead of putting the ball at risk, he takes the safe one, and it ends up being a big gain still.
Morgan is now 11 of 13. Going to the air once more. 12 of 14. Bobbled and caught by Brockington. And they're in the red zone all the way down to the 12.
I mean, this is such a technical drive right now. You're getting everything that you want to get. Michigan State reeling for answers. You can see it in the players in their body language. You can see it on the sideline. And it's going to be critical for them to bow up. We've seen Michigan State get tough in this part of the football field. If they don't right now, I think it sends a message about what they're putting on tape.
Brockington is the 8th different receiver that has caught a pass in this game. And Morgan is 12 of 14. Outside he goes, and Geary this time is tackled quickly. So finally that Michigan State defense, something to rally around. Only a gain of 1. The 43rd start for Tanner Morgan, and so far, Joshua, I would say this is about as well as I've seen him play.
I mean, he's seeing the field well. He's commanding it. Rick was talking about him making audibles out there. He's making the right decisions instead of taking risks with the football. Just looks like a guy who's in full command of what's going on the football field.
Outside to Ibrahim, and Ibrahim is chucked out of bounds by Charles Brantley on a big collision. So that'll bring up 3rd down.
You know, Mel Tucker likes these types of collisions. He talked about this exact thing with Charles Brantley, that you've got to hit with that shoulder leverage tackle. He said to Charles in practice, did it hurt? And Brantley says, yeah, coach, it hurts. He said, good, this is football. It's a collision sport. It's supposed to hurt, but you have to make those tackles in the game just like they do in practice. So Mel Tucker's going to be happy that's showing up right now.
And the play clock is going all the way down, so P.J. Fleck is going to take a timeout. Still has 1 left.
Minnesota, they're 2nd of the half.
3rd down and 6 when we return.
Full media timeout.
Senior defensive end Chris Bogle now going into the locker room. Just can't put any weight on that leg. They're already down 4 starters on that defense.
It's a rough spot to be in, and some of those starters that are out are known as their best leaders defensively too, and you can see the adversity on the football field. It's making an impact.
Where does Minnesota go here, 3rd and 6?
Well, I think I'm going to try to look for a single coverage up top there to the offensive right. I might try that one.
Minnesota's 3rd drive. They've all been over 5 minutes. Trying to cap this one off with another touchdown, but they cannot. No flags. Back of the end zone was looking for Span Ford. Incomplete. And for the first time, the field goal unit will trot out. Matthew Trickett, 2nd-year transfer from Kent State in his final year of eligibility. Perfect 3 for 3 this season. This a short one from 26. And he slips it inside the right upright to remain perfect on the season. And Minnesota now with a 17-0 lead. Well, I tell you what, we talked about Michigan State. How would they respond from the game against Washington? But so far, this one is all about the Golden Gophers.
Golden Gophers coming out with their game plan. They're setting it up with the pass to get to the run, but it's been really effective today. And Michigan State just doesn't have any answers. And you can see defensively, they're oscillating between single high safety, 2 high safety. They've shown some blitz. They don't know what their identity is right now, and it's really hurting them.
So if you're Michigan State, what do you do right now? Because their offense has not been able to do anything.
Well, offensively, they need to have success on early downs. I mentioned that earlier, but you come out on the first drive, you only have a 1-yard gain on first down. Second drive, you have 0 yards on first down. If you can't maximize what you're doing in early downs, it's going to be a long drive to begin with. It really ends in a short drive.
It is only 60 degrees, but some sweat dripping down Mel Tucker's face right now. Only 1 yard on offense so far for the Spartans. I feel like I need to admit, by the way, that I was standing on a box when we were just on camera. I'm not as tall as Joshua Perry. I'm stronger, I'm just not as tall.
That is correct.
Touchback. Well, still to come, more football. Primetime tonight, Purdue hosting Florida Atlantic, or some will see Northwestern in Miami. Presented by Hampton by Hilton, 7:30 Eastern tonight, Big Ten Network, Fox Sports App. Peyton Thorne, who led the team to an 11-2 season a year ago, trying to get this offense on track. And throwing it complete across the 30. And finally a play for a decent chunk. Some sarcastic cheers from the crowd. Their first down, it goes to Malik Carr, and also a good sign for them. Jalen Berger, who we told you is nursing a bit of a hip flexor issue, is out on the field at running back. And there's Jaden Reed. So now getting into a little bit of a rhythm.
And kind of hitting Minnesota with some of their own stuff. You see them using the boot on the first play of this drive and then going with the little RPO look to hit one of your best targets. And now they're going fast.
And there's Coleman. Coleman slips as he tried to make a cut. He's going to be a yard short of the marker, so 3rd down and 1.
Ball spotted at the Eastern State 15-yard line. 3rd down. 2 to go.
I feel like this is another one the Spartans need to convert here with 9 minutes left in the second quarter. They give it to, no, he keeps it, and he did the job. Peyton Thorne faked again to Berger, and gets it out to the 48-yard line, 1st down.
And this Michigan State coaching staff has talked about the toughness that Peyton Thorne has. He's a guy who's going to take that chance in a little zone read. He's going to throw his shoulder in there. They don't always like that, but he's going to get the tough yards when they need to, and that's what you want to see out of your quarterback.
Son of a coach. Been around football his whole life. Here he turns and hands it off to Berger for his first carry of the game, a gain of 1. Obviously at running back last year they had Kenneth Walker III. Now they have Berger and Broussard kind of as that 1-2 punch.
And the challenge there is Kenneth Walker III was a running back who made your offensive line right at all times. If they didn't get all of their blocks, he could make a guy miss. He could run through tackles. And they're waiting to see if these running backs can emerge with that same presence.
Berger, a Wisconsin transfer. Broussard, who you saw earlier from Colorado. Over the middle, there's Trey Mosley, his first catch. Gain of 5.
Again, Peyton Thorne with that veteran presence goes through his read progression. He told us yesterday, listen, if I look at the defense, I know I can cancel out some of my reads so I can go through even quicker. But a nice, accurate ball delivered right over where you snapped it, it's always a good game.
Mentioned the son of a coach, his father, Jeff, now in his first season as the offensive coordinator at Western Michigan. He's a former quarterback himself. Jeff played at Eastern Illinois. And Berger trying to fight back to the line of scrimmage, but Mariano Marin got in there and everybody else rallied, and now you've got a decision. You're near midfield, 4th down. What does Mel Tucker do?
I'd go for it. I mean, you haven't held on to the ball this long all day. You don't want to give it back to Minnesota because you know your defense has been struggling and they can eat up the clock. To me, regardless, I mean, this is about a 4th and 4, 4th and 5 situation. I'd go for it every time right here.
And the offense is on the field, at least for the time being. Michigan State has gone for 9 4th downs already this year, converted 6 of them. Trying to make it 7. Thorne intercepted. Trying to get it out to Keon Coleman, but Justin Wally, who was a freshman All-American a season ago, jumps up and grabs it, and Minnesota gets the football back. There's a flag down at the end of this play.
Sideline warning. Michigan State, it's their first. There is no yardage penalty. Media timeout.
Just when you thought the Spartans were getting momentum, it's snuffed out.
Peyton Thorne was thinking about it. You could see him pumping a couple of times. He lets it go, and this is just great coverage right here for Minnesota. Everything's going their way right now.
Minnesota coming into today 2nd in the country in total offense and defense. Those numbers, the top performance index brought to you by Invesco QQQ. And they're only continuing to improve upon their numbers here so far against Michigan State. 227-30 in the yardage category. After the Wally interception, now taking a shot and completing it. Dalen Wright hauls it in on another great pass from Tanner Morgan.
And, you know, I keep talking about the difference between the single high safety. Do you keep 2 high safeties out there? This was an open middle of the field defense that Michigan State was playing. And so what do? You attack it, and you see all that space right there. Again, another accurate pass from Tanner Morgan. This Minnesota offense is getting whatever they want today.
And Dalen Wright with 26 yards there. It's another big play for Minnesota. This time on the ground, a hole, and there goes Ibrahim, but he slips up. You can see the divot at the 25-yard line.
And you look at this offensive line for Minnesota, the blocking up there is just so good. And they get on these combo blocks, and they're staying on them. But even the single blocks, I mean, guys aren't sliding off. Mo Ibrahim gets a clear run at it, and he's a great running back. But when you see the on-body blocking right here, it's really eye-opening how much they're dominating up front. And like we just saw that big pass play going over the top. They're getting whatever they want.
And this is an offensive line that lost 4 starters from a season ago, even though they do have some older guys who have experience. Not a lot of starting experience coming into this season. And some miscommunication. You see Tanner Morgan frustrated as they try to get the snap off at the last second.
False start. Offense, number 69. 5-yard penalty. First down.
That's on one of those younger guys up front, Ariante Ursary. But I think everybody actually moved.
Everybody except for the center, it seems like, was going a little bit early. He was the one who didn't get the communication right there.
Ariante's like, really? Did you have to call out my number? Between the tackles, Ibrahim lost the ball. Maybe that's what Michigan State needed. Ronald Williams jumps on it. Cal Halliday was the one to pop it free.
Timeout. I mean, you talk about a smart Cal Halliday, a junkyard dog, put your face on the football. That's a huge play. Now, here's that fumble that we just saw. I mentioned Cal Halliday. It's actually Jacoby Windman. I got him circled right there. And you're going to see he's done this so many times already this season. Just going to get a great punch on the football. Boom, and it comes out. He's got such a good sense for where the football is. He's done this so many times. So awesome to see.
And Berger with a carry there, a gain of 9. But, yeah, and how about for Windman? This is the 5th forced fumble that he has caused already this season.
Some guys just have a knack for it. It's a sense. You have to have awareness of the football. He does it in the run game. We've seen him do it in pass rushes. It's a big deal because now the momentum's back on Michigan State's side.
So each team with a giveaway in opponent territory, and now a first down run by Jalen Berger. Well, let's go ahead and take a look at today's Built for Success, brought to you by Rocket Mortgage. And I mentioned Jacoby Windman. That is indeed now 5 forced fumbles, and yes, that leads the FBS. And how about Brooks with 3?
Something that they're teaching within this program. You can get guys to think about going after the football, but the ones who just have it inside of them continuously do it. And it's a game changer, especially when you're struggling on that side of the football. If you can get the other team to give it back to you, help fix some things over there.
Now Thorne off the play fake, takes a shot, but too much. He had Jaden Reed. Reed knows it. Could have been their first points.
Could have been, and I know that they've been missing Jaden Reed. Having him back out on the field, you can see how he can get behind defenses, and it was good play design by Michigan State too, running a crosser to kind of hold that middle of the field safety so you can get your isolation. Those are the plays I want to see Peyton Thorne capitalize on.
Jaden Reed is called bird by his quarterback Peyton Thorne. He needed to fly to grab that one, could not, and now Keon Coleman got his hands on it but couldn't reel it in, and all of a sudden it went from a possible long touchdown to dealing with a 3rd and 10 at your own 45.
And you can go back to first down. They wanted to take the shot down the field. You get nothing there, which is fine. On second down, you'd love to be able to connect on that play so you can make sure that you get yourself into a 3rd and manageable. Now it's 3rd and long. You probably got to go back down the field. And these are situations that Michigan State doesn't want to be in offensively.
Thorne started 5 of 6, but he's 0 for his last 3 with that interception included in there. On 3rd and 10, he does complete it to Coleman, but Coleman is dragged down well shy of the line to gain. And now another decision. I mean, you got 4th and 7, but do you think about going for this?
Well, your defense just got you back off the field by turning the football over. You think about it, but it looks like they're getting ready to trot out the punt team.
And a few more Boo Birds here in East Lansing. Just surprised at that pass, that it wasn't thrown closer to the sticks on 3rd and 10. Bryce Behringer gets the punt away. And it goes into the end zone. 2:45 left. We'll be back in 15 seconds. (17-0) Minnesota leading what has been a dominant first half. Tomorrow, sensational volleyball matchup coming your way. Gophers battle the defending national champs, the Badgers. Top 10 showdown, 8 Eastern tomorrow, powered by Unleaded 88. So Minnesota with a chance to put one final stamp on what has been really a sensational first half. The only blemish was the fumble last drive by this man, Mo Ibrahim, and look at him lower his shoulder as a flag comes in. Well, he and Gross toe-to-toe with some words after. There's also an injured Spartan down. I believe that's Simeon Barrow.
Personal foul, illegal blindside block. Offense, number 22. Half the distance to the goal. First down.
Well, that's on the receiver, Michael Brown-Stevens. But right now, concern for another key defender, Simeon Barrow. Again, they came into the game down 4 starters. They've already lost Chris Bogle. We'll be back in 30 seconds. And Barrow, who had a career-high 8 tackles last week, limps off. Michigan State right now struggling with injuries, struggling on the field, just a lot of issues.
Yeah, I mean, you know, you get Bogle today earlier with the injury. It certainly hurts. You've got Barrow right there, and he's filling in for Slade on that defensive line, who's been out for a while now. So it's not just what's happening schematically and execution-wise, but you get the attrition through injuries, which certainly Michigan State doesn't want to see right now.
After the penalty, it is 1st and 18. See Minnesota continuing to work that clock. They do not want Michigan State to touch the ball again this half. Ibrahim to the outside and colliding with Kendall Brooks. But coming up, stick around. Reese's Peanut Butter Cups halftime report with Dave, Jerry, and Howard breaking down the first half. Another action across the Big Ten. Michigan was tested, but
timeout.
Able to get the victory
Michigan State
over Maryland.
Their first of the half. 30
But their
seconds.
in-state rivals struggling. Mel Tucker takes a timeout back in 30. So Mel Tucker, Big Ten Coach of the Year last season, taking his first timeout with 1:59 remaining. Tanner Morgan been so sensational this half. Once again, is going to defer to Ibrahim. Ibrahim again lowers the shoulder and collides with Brooks, but he's eventually taken out of bounds. And now Mel Tucker will use another timeout. And we will once again step aside for 30 seconds.
30 seconds.
3rd and 9. Do you think P.J. Fleck runs, forces him to use another timeout, or do you pass it here, Joshua?
Well, P.J. Fleck is by-the-book, conservative type of game manager, so I expect him to run the football here, force another timeout, and then eventually punt it away.
Ibrahim 66 yards rushing already and a touchdown. Well, they're going to throw it. He pumps, and now he may take off. Yes. And he gets the first down with a second effort. He was able to get by Aaron Brule. 10-yard gain. How huge was that?
I mean, you dropped back, you had the play action look, everybody's expecting you to take the shot down the field, pull it down, and then make a guy miss. And this is the tackling that Mel Tucker talked to us about. I mean, this is not what you want to see out of your defense. You want those guys to be out there attacking, not just throwing a shoulder in there.
You know, I wonder if Brule thought that Morgan was going to give himself up, because it looked like he stopped making that tackle attempt there. Either way, Minnesota keeping the football, and there's Brown Stevens out to midfield before he's upended by Brantley. But if Tanner Morgan gives himself up, the play is dead wherever the official deems that he did. I think there's a case to say that he was giving himself up.
I totally see that, and this is a tough spot in college football right now, and I know that Kenny Pickett play from last year was very controversial, has popped this conversation up.
White says that he intercepted that, but that was not the ruling on the field. We also have a flag that comes in. They called it a 7-yard catch.
Pass interference. Number 88. 15-yard penalty from the previous spot. First down.
Okay, so that's on the tight end, Span Ford, and backs him up. But just to put a
see at the very bottom of the screen right there. We'll call him on that clear out. I know one of the points of emphasis is those guys on the pick routes right there, and trying to create that separation, that space for somebody else to get open.
54 seconds. And they might be taking a peek to see if that was an interception on the previous play by Justin White, because the crowd saw it on the Jumbotron and they started to react. Mel Tucker certainly wants an explanation.
Get you a look right here. You can see both of them got contact on the football.
Oh.
Does it touch the ground? Maybe it's an incompletion, but I can see why Michigan State would want to say they came up with that one if that ball was still alive.
It was a great effort by White, but it looked pretty clear that it hit the ground.
Michigan State is challenging the ruling on the field of an incomplete pass. Plays under further review.
So Mel Tucker will have them take another look at it. Our Mike Pereira out in the LA studio taking a peek at it as well and joining us. So Mike, it looked to us like this hit the ground. What did you see?
Well, it does hit the ground. And you know, you get to this point where Coach Tucker ought to realize that they've looked at this already very closely in the replay booth. And so if there was question in their mind, they would have already stopped this. Obviously, it's a big play. So what you end up doing is you cost yourself
after further
your own
review,
challenge
the ruling on the field of an incomplete pass is confirmed. Michigan State loses their timeout and their challenge for the rest of the ball game.
Okay, so Mike is correct, and a challenge wasted there for Michigan State. Well, the good news for him and his defense, at least Minnesota, after the penalty by Span Ford, is backed up all the way to their own 35. there just has not been much for Mel Tucker and Michigan State to grab onto here in this first half. They only have 45 yards of offense. Minnesota's up over 300 yards. Ibrahim adding to his first half totals. Reese's Peanut Butter Cups halftime report coming up shortly as the seconds in the second quarter tick away. I mean, if you're PJ Fleck, other than the one turnover, this has to be a dream first half.
Oh, very satisfying for the Minnesota Golden Gophers. Go out, execute your offensive game plan. Defensively, they've been stifling, just keeping up what they did even going back to last year. So the adjustments will need to be made, but this is a great performance in the first half.
Morgan, oh, that's a face mask. Look at his helmet came off. My goodness. Brandon Wright came through and ripped the helmet right off the head of Tanner Morgan. Just thankful that he's okay.
Yeah, you see on the replay, this is pretty obvious right here. Throwing an arm out there, trying to make a play.
Foul.
You're right.
Face mask.
Thankfully, Tanner Morgan's okay.
26. 15-yard penalty enforced from the previous spot. Includes an automatic first down.
Flags came flying in from everywhere, understandably, after the Wright infraction. 12 seconds left. What that also does now, you put the ball at the other 45, you got a chance here to get in field goal range.
Yeah. I mean, this is, again, for Michigan State, it just seems like everything that could go wrong in this half has gone wrong for them. You have to draw a line in the sand right here, see if you can bow up and get a couple of stops.
Clock starts here. Remember, Minnesota one timeout left. But precious seconds just ticked away. And this is probably going to end the first half.
That's the end of the second quarter.
So probably a little mismanaged by Minnesota. I think PJ Fleck was confused as to why the clock started before the snap. He just said, "Why didn't you tell me that?" So he's frustrated he couldn't at least get a field goal try out of that. And should there also have been 1 second?
Looked like he was out of bounds on that one. It's pretty clear from what we have up there with 1 second left on the clock.
Well, through all of that, we'll just toss it down to Rick Pizzo.
Brandon, thank you. PJ, what were you trying to clarify there with referee Jeff Stravinsky?
Well, just I was told one thing, another thing happened with the clock situation about stopping the clock versus going, and that's all we were clearing up.
Tanner Morgan, so good. 8 different receivers in this game making checks and pass pro changes. How did he do what he did in that first 30 minutes?
Well, it's just about everything setting each other up. It's complementary football, right? I mean, running the ball on the ground really well and efficiently, except our fumble down here, which we just can't do. And then it's creating the opportunities and windows on the second, third level, and our guys are making plays. We got to play way better in the second half, though. They're a really good football team.
Thanks, PJ. Appreciate it.
Well, actually, they're bringing the teams back on the field. They may look at this and give them 1 second.
Boy. I mean, Michigan State band is on the sideline already.
It's turning into a Cal Stanford situation. The football, if they give them a second, would be at the 44-yard line. Now, from there, it would be a very long field goal of over 60 yards.
Just to look at it one more time, it's pretty clearly out of bounds, and there's still a second left on the game clock. So went and took a look at that. It's the right decision by rule to have these guys out here. A second left to see if we can make something happen.
You got a kicker in Matthew Trickett who has a career long of 50. So you could either toss it toward the end zone, let him try a 62-yard field goal,
kneel it down,
or kneel it and just go to the half.
The runner was out of bounds at the 44-yard line when 1 second left on the clock. The ball be placed at the 44-yard line. 1 second on the clock. The clock will start on the snap.
So Minnesota heads to the locker room and then, hey, guys, come back. We're not done yet.
You see some wide eyes and some confusion in there. What is going on?
And all of that for this. Kind of surprised he didn't at least throw it toward the end zone. But PJ Fleck says, I'm good. 17-0 the score at intermission. Reese's Peanut Butter Cups halftime report next from Chicago. Football on the Big Ten Network is brought to you by Auto Owners Insurance. Simple human sense. By Fubo, watch complete college football coverage plus over 100 live channels of sports and TV without cable. Try free at FuboTV.com. And by Discover, the official credit card of the Big Ten Conference. 17-0 PJ Fleck's crew with an impressive 30 minutes. As we get set to begin the third quarter, the question is, how will Michigan State respond? Yards in the first half, 310 for Minnesota, just 45 for Michigan State.
And of all the stats that you can look at, I think the time of possession tells this story the best. And I think it's one of the most overrated stats in football typically. But Minnesota, 21 minutes with the ball in the first half. Michigan State only 9. And as much as it reflects on the scoreboard for Minnesota, it does the same thing for Michigan State. They've run something like 19 plays so far in this game. That's not enough time to figure out what's working. It's not enough time to make adjustments. It's not enough time for your guys to get into a rhythm. So defensively for Michigan State, you got to get those stops so you can get your offense more chances at possessing the football.
Let's take a look at our quarterback comparison from the first half, brought to you by Unleaded 88. Tanner Morgan, 17 and 22.07. I said it mid-second quarter. That's about as good of a half of football as I've seen him play.
Very efficient half of football. He looks confident throwing it to his different targets without Chris Ottman-Bell in the game. Handing the football off to Mo Ibrahim is so easy for him anyway. And then you've got Peyton Thorne, and he's a guy, again, who needs to get in a rhythm. He needs more shots with the football.
Rick Pizzo, what do you have?
Just spoke with Mel Tucker. He said no panic in the Michigan State locker room, no yelling, believes they are in a position to win this game despite playing so poorly in that first 30 minutes. Said there are two keys on defense. Michigan State has to do a better job tackling, especially when Mo Ibrahim has the ball, and they have to get some pressure on Tanner Morgan. Offensively, Tucker said, we get the ball to start the first half, we have to go score. As a matter of fact, we are going to score. We're going to cut it loose.
Mel Tucker trying to infuse some confidence in Peyton Thorne in this offense. For Minnesota's offense, I mentioned they had 310 yards in the first half. Last time these two teams met was 2017, and Minnesota in that entire game had 290 yards of offense and lost. But a different story here so far in 2022. Mel Tucker's crew will receive the football to start the third quarter. Michigan State Spartans 2-1. The loss last week at Washington. Minnesota coming in with those 3 wins where they were so dominant over New Mexico State, Western Illinois, and Colorado. But people were wondering how would they handle a test against Michigan State on the road. They passed that test through 30 minutes. Thorne right to the air. A rifle complete as he finds Trey Mosley shy of the 40.
That was a good 3-level passing game for Michigan State just to put some zone defenders in conflict right there. One of those guys was going to come open. One of the rhythm passes that they have within their playbook, again, just trying to establish this offense.
Second catch for Mosley, who has a touchdown catch in all 3 games so far. But Michigan State still trying to find the end zone here. And this time it is Jalen Berger. Those running backs didn't get much going in the first half. But Berger with a 4-yard gain there.
That was a counter run with the misdirection. Reed was on a motion trying to capture the eyes of the linebackers in the secondary and then putting a couple of pullers over the edge so they can get on body with defenders. Michigan State going to have to probably go back to that concept. It's going to be effective later on.
Thorne saying come back, and he completes it. The ball pops free, but he was down. Daniel Barker with his first catch. The tight end for a gain of 18.
That was good by Peyton Thorne, kind of signaling to his tight end Barker, hey, go ahead and settle down. You've got zone coverage right there. Don't just keep running. You're going to run into a guy.
Going quick. That ball buried in the air. Connor Baugh got a hand on it. Second down. Let's talk about the time of possession. You just see the style differences. Michigan State trying to get the thing going quicker on offense.
And it's tough, too, because if you're not efficient with these drives and you're going fast and you're not taking up a lot of clock, you give it back to Minnesota, who's just going to milk the time away. So you got to be careful. Again, this is another one of those first downs where they didn't get any yards. So second down play calling going to be imperative here. I'd go to the air.
Thorne is 9 of 14. Flips it to the outside to Berger. Berger's got a hole. And a big play. Flag does come in on the near side. For the moment, a gain of 13.
Holding. Offense. Number 6. 10-yard penalty from the spot of the foul. Second down.
So on the tight end, Malik Carr.
You see the hold out there on the edge. You want these guys, your tight ends and wide receivers, to get involved on the edges in blocking. This is essentially a run play, but you don't want them to hold because now it sets your offense into an even worse position.
You always look more guilty when you throw your hands up in the air.
Every time.
Spot foul, so second and 14. Similar play. Once more back to Berger. It's some of that yardage back out to the 40. That'll bring up a 3rd and 9. Well, Mel Tucker told Rick, we're going to take it down and score. Could be 4-down territory as well.
It should be 4-down territory. I take every shot I get.
Minnesota has not won in East Lansing since 2006. Michigan State has won the last 5 in this series. Spartans working from behind here. They do complete it. Mosley again. First down inside the 30.
It's a big play right there to keep the chains moving. You can hear the crowd getting back into it.
And an injured player on the side
for an injured player.
Minnesota. That's Braylon Oliver. Redshirt senior linebacker, a guy who has dealt with injury in his career, had a gruesome knee injury in 2020 and missed the season.
Timeout on the field.
They'll check him out. We'll be back in a moment. It's a play no one around here will ever forget. The big moment, Little Giants, Monday 7 Eastern on Big Ten Network and the Fox Sports app. Our spotter Bob Lanigan will never forget that one either. 1st and 10 here on the ground. Jarek Broussard. And to the 21, the offense just looks so much different on this drive.
And I mentioned that Michigan State should go back to that counter concept. It was the same thing right there. Minnesota's having trouble picking it up.
They're going quickly. Second effort got him the first. Needed 2, he picked up 3. In the first half, they had 1 play of 10 or more yards, Michigan State. This drive, they already have 3 such plays.
I mean, they made the adjustments. It wasn't a lot to make adjustments off of either, but you can tell there's a different mentality. These guys are playing hard. Similar to a week ago when they were out at Washington, it seemed like that offense really picked up another level in the second half.
I will say for a 60-degree day, Mel Tucker has sweat more than any man I've ever seen. He's been perspiring from the start. Thorne rolling out. Could not stay in bounds. Or did he? No, they will say that Jaden Reed did get a foot down.
Get the replay of this one. See, Reed's got the ball. Looks like he's got control right there. The toe is really close.
Grazing the top of that grass.
Let the grass grow out a little bit.
What a play.
That is.
Michigan State's first trip in the red zone.
The ruling on the field is complete. That play is under further review.
So Jeff Cervinski wants to look at it with our replay official up here in the booth, Tom Herbert. It's one of those where I don't know if there's enough to change the call.
I mean, it's very close on the line of when maybe that toe really lifted up there. So I'm with you. Feels like a play that might stand up. probably a better look at it, but it's still difficult to tell really without being zoomed all the way in there.
If it stands as called, it'll be 2nd and 4, if not 2nd and 10. But Jaden Reed mentioned that he was out last week with a back injury after having stitches in his lower back week 2 against Akron. But this is a guy that was a first-team All-American last year, and obviously, Joshua, so valuable to this offense.
He's box office. I mean, when you flip on his highlights, he is extremely electric. Guy knows how to get open down the field. The catch and run is awesome. He makes plays like these. When you need a big moment, he's got it for you. Very special player, so I know they like having him back out there on the field.
Here's a call.
After the review, the catch is confirmed. 2nd down.
Okay, so confirmed, 2nd and 4. Reed last year over 1,000 yards and 10 touchdowns, still looking for his first score of 2022. The Spartans ran 19 plays in the entire first half. This is already the 11th play of this drive. Broussard cuts it back in. And Jarek Broussard down to the 6. First down.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great cut right there by Broussard, too. He wants to take it out wide, realizes that there's an unblocked defender out there, so you eventually have to put your foot in the ground. It's really difficult for some of these backs to get vertical when they put that foot in the ground and then to run through for some extra yards. It's a solid play right there.
Broussard last week, 3 yards against Washington on 4 carries. He had 6 alone on that play right there. First and goal, keeping it Thorne, and he lost it. It's taken away. Minnesota has it. Justin Wally, who had the interception earlier, picks up the fumble from Thorne here.
Rolling on the field. It's a fumble. Recovered by the defense. First down and 10, Minnesota.
Just when you thought Michigan State was going to get their first points of the game, not to be.
Ball's just knocked out right there. You mentioned Wally picking it up. He's a real competitor. Michigan State with the momentum, they just lost it.
Thomas Rush, number 8, the 5th-year senior, playing in his 50th career game today, and he's the one that jarred that ball free.
50. I mean, that's a lot of games. I'm trying to think of playing in that 50th game. It's a big moment, and coming up with a play like that, Michigan State had all the momentum. The game is totally different now.
It was Peyton Thorne's second giveaway. Remember, he had the interception, now the fumble in the red zone. And there's Ibrahim bouncing it outside and hanging on for dear life. Kendall Brooks gets him to the ground after a gain of 11. And Ibrahim is still down.
Timeout for an injured player.
And every Gopher fan back in the Twin Cities holding their breath right now. Their star running back, who earlier scored his 41st rushing touchdown in his career, slow to get up.
See if we can tell what happens here. Foot gets rolled up underneath. I've had that happen. That's a tough one. And Mo is a tough guy, too. He wouldn't just stay down on the field over anything, so he's got to be in some pain right now. That's tough to see.
Last year in the opener, tore that Achilles, missed the rest of the season. Good sign that he's able to walk off and looks to be doing so pretty fluidly. He's got a streak of 12 games over 100 yards rushing. Longest active in college football. He's at 82 yards rushing, 102 total yards today. Now they're going to take him into the 10. Trey Potts replaces him in the backfield. And Potts gets his number called. Look at the help he's getting. Rushmeyer tried to push him forward. Well, still to come, the tripleheader rolls on. Some of you will see Purdue and Florida Atlantic, others Northwestern and Miami, presented by Hampton by Hilton, 7:30 Eastern tonight on the Big Ten Network. Morgan on 2nd and 8, lets it go as he gets hit and completes it. Dalen Wright, first down Minnesota. That ball had to travel a long way.
That's a tough pass. You know, you talk about college quarterbacks.
Timeout for an injured player.
Injured Spartan as well on the play. Here's Charles Brantley, the corner. He's going to hobble off to the other sideline. But what were you saying about the pass?
When you evaluate college quarterbacks, can you get from that far hash all the way out to the sideline? It's a difficult one, and the ball was a little bit short, but you got a playmaker like right over there, too, who can just catch it, make a guy miss, and turn up for a couple yards. It's a pretty solid play.
Oregon now 18 of 21, 220 yards, a touchdown, no interceptions. He's number 1 in program history in wins, 2nd in passing yards, and 2nd in passing touchdowns. What a career it's been. He's going to the air again. He's completing it again. Michael Brown-Stevens.
And Minnesota's just hitting that RPO, and Michigan State's been showing a too-high safety shell, playing some cover 2. So if they can get that Mike linebacker to bite up there on that run, the middle of the field is really soft. That's where they hit it right there.
They were cautiously optimistic in East Lansing after the first 2 games, albeit against lesser competition, that secondary had improved, but they struggled last week, and they've had their struggles today. This time a little screen. Some room to roam for Daniel Jackson. Finally taken down by Angelo Gross. Another first down, 15 yards.
You're going to see right here on the far right, a little screen like you said. The key to this play, though, is the way the block's set up. I mean, look at those big guys running out of the stack right there. You see Jackson just using his athletic ability to cut it up. That was a well-executed play.
Now 21 plays of 10 or more yards. Spartans were just 4. Bryce Williams in the game. Saw him catch a pass earlier. This is his first run. Injury update on Mo Ibrahim. Rick, what do you have?
Well, very good news for Minnesota. Mo did not spend much time in the medical tent. Came out just a second ago, went directly to P.J. Fleck, and as you might guess, on this next play, Mo Ibrahim right back in the Minnesota backfield.
Yeah, that's a great sign. Mo Ibrahim, number 24, and he turned 24 years of age just a couple of weeks ago on September 8th. And the 24-year-old gets it right back in the game and right back to handing out a punishing run. And look at the big uglies pushing him down to the 21-yard line. Gain of 11.
I mean, that's a tough downhill old school run, but the play design also sets up for that too, because you see the nub side tight end, the cornerback is now in the fit, and you can manhandle that guy with the tight end.
Timeout for an injured player.
Another timeout for an injury.
Immediate timeout.
We'll take a break and be back in a moment. Football on the Big Ten Network is brought to you by Discover, the official credit card of the Big Ten Conference. Mo Ibrahim goes off for one play, comes back out, has that punishing run. You think P.J. Fleck was excited about it?
You know, this is a guy who is not afraid to show his emotion out there on the field. Mo Ibrahim is one of his leaders. Guy's banged up, comes right back out, has a tough run. I mean, if I was P.J. Fleck, I'd be really excited too.
What a luxury to have him back and healthy this year. Remember, this drive started all the way back at their own 10. Now they're on the edge of the red zone. It's Mo again. Not much, though. Just 2 yards for the 19. Mo Ibrahim, 6-year senior. We mentioned it, 33rd game. Just turned 24. 12 straight games of 100 yards rushing. He's knocking on the door for a 13th. And career ranks first in touchdowns, set that record today. I mean, he has done it all. He's at 95 yards right now, so 5 away from making it 13 straight games of 100 yards on the ground. Bryce Williams, though, is in the backfield this time. Bryce Williams with a hole on the outside. And stepping out right around the first down marker.
And Minnesota, again, has been getting in these nub side tight end looks. There's nobody outside of the tight end on the end of the line of scrimmage. It brings a corner back into the run fit. It looks like the corner, I believe it was Brantley on that one, just ran up the field, created a huge seam. You have to play discipline. I know it's not something he typically does, but it's what offenses try to do to create a fair matchup, an advantageous matchup on their side.
3rd and 1. I have a feeling this is going to Ibrahim. No. Spanford is going to push the pile and give Morgan enough for the first down. Was that the old Bush push play there?
Might have been. Might have been.
Brevin Spanford, the tight end at 270 pounds, just shoving Morgan past the marker.
This is like a hard hat and lunch pail type of offense. I mean, these guys, and they'll open it up, no doubt. We've seen that. But they can play you in a phone booth and really make this thing like grimy in there. It's a fun brand of football to watch for them.
1st and goal. This Minnesota team came in outscoring their opponents 149-17, and here they're up 17-0. Ibrahim gets another carry. Down to the 6. Earlier, he had his 41st rushing touchdown. School record for overall touchdowns. He's just 2 away from that.
The Moometer might be ticking up here in the scoring range right now, and Michigan State is certainly tightening up on the inside of that defense. They're trying to move their guys around because of the size of Minnesota's offensive line, but we know what the mentality of this PJ Fleck team is. They want to get downhill.
You know what's shocking to me, though, is Ibrahim has never had a receiving touchdown in his career. Faking the give to him, throwing for the end zone, adjustment, and a catch is made by Nick Callerup. First career touchdown for the redshirt junior. In week 1, he had his first catch of his career. Now, Joshua, his first score.
I mean, Callerup right here, you mentioned the adjustment. I mean, look at the focus and the concentration. That ball goes between 2 defenders, which is pretty impressive as well. It was the only place that Tanner Morgan could have put it where Callerup would have had a chance to make the completion. That is a heck of a football play on both sides.
It is also the 10th different receiver that has caught a pass in this game from Tanner Morgan. Minnesota is just putting on a clinic today in East Lansing. They now have gone over 400 yards of total offense, and we're only in the 3rd quarter.
Timeout on the field.
For the biggest Big Ten experience, there's no plus like home. The Big Ten Plus app, powered by Big Ten Network. You can download it and subscribe right now. Nick Callerup, who's just a special teams guy the last couple of years. First career touchdown for the tight end, 24-0. And after that touchdown, some of the folks here heading for the exits. It has been a tough game to watch if you're a Spartan fan.
Minnesota's played this game exactly the way that they wanted to. I mean, Michigan State's offense has barely been on the field, but their defense has done a great job of smothering. And even on that drive where Michigan State had success, you get the football out and then offensively.
There's a touchback. T-Mobile Studio update. Here's Dave Revson.
Brandon, Indiana trying to climb back against Cincinnati. Connor Bazelak hitting Sean Shivers here, but the Hoosiers still down 38-17 on the road.
All right, Dave, appreciate you keeping tabs on that one. As Minnesota is on their way to their first victory here in this building since 2006. Faking the handoff, Thorne's going to roll out and complete it to Keon Coleman. Coleman cuts back, gets a little extra on the end of it as he takes it out shy of the 40 for a gain of 13.
And Coleman is an electric playmaker. He's a guy that you want to see if you can find opportunities for. And Michigan State obviously not having the ball very much in this game. It's been tough, but as many opportunities as I could find for Coleman and Reed, I would take.
Coleman just 7 catches last year as a true freshman, had 9 last week in a coming out party against Washington. They try to set up the screen and it's intercepted by Danny Strigo. The defensive end got his paw on it and reeled it in. First pick of his career. And the boos are coming down at Spartan Stadium.
Yeah, I mean, look at the sideline over there, too, for Minnesota. And those guys are celebrating as they should. Yeah, you can see him. He's going to be lined up, I believe, right here on the far left of the screen. And on these screenplays for the guys up front, it is all about recognition. You see how he notices that it's a screen, so he sits down in his rush, able to get some extension so he can get his hands up there right in the passing lane. I mean, that is a heck of a play, and everything that Minnesota's wanted to get today, it seems like they've had.
3 turnovers now, 2 interceptions by Thorne, a fumble loss by Thorne. Michigan State, 2 turnovers on their last 3 snaps. Bryce Williams staying on his feet. You know, Mel Tucker, and when we talked to him yesterday, I was ready to run through a wall.
Yes.
You just thought he was going to have his guys so ready, but Minnesota has had the momentum from second one in this ball game.
It's the game plan to me. Offensively, they don't care if they don't have an 80-yard touchdown a game. It doesn't matter one bit to them. As long as they can possess the ball and keep moving forward and not allow the other team chances at it, that's exactly what they've done. And this Michigan State defense has to find some answers here down the line because if they continue this for the rest of the season, it's not going to look very pretty for them.
Williams bounces it out. The flag comes flying in.
Holding. Hard penalty. Second down.
Holding on the left tackle, Ursary. Well, before the season, Wisconsin was picked to win the West, as they usually are. But I think with this performance today, maybe some adjustment is needed on these predictions.
And you know, as I looked at that, I was in wait-and-see mode with Wisconsin, replacing 8 starters on defense. Graham Mertz has been very up and down in his career. I felt Iowa's offensive troubles coming, even though I know they would be good on special teams and defense. Minnesota was one of the teams that I liked, as well as Purdue. I was right about Minnesota up to this point. Purdue we're still waiting on, but this is a veteran football team, got a lot of talent, and they go out there and they execute the way you want them to.
So many teams have older players due to the extra COVID year, but you just look at Minnesota's experience, led by Morgan and Ibrahim. Here it's Morgan completing another one to Michael Brown-Stevens. And again, they're coming into this game without Chris Ottman-Bell. Had the injury last week and done for the season. He was their leader, and they're still doing this.
And there's no replacing Chris Ottman-Bell. You truly can't replace a guy like that. You mentioned the leadership. He's a football junkie. Like, they love his presence. But this is also an offense that's built to be able to plug and play guys at the wide receiver position because they can get favorable matchups based off of how they run the football. In the secondary, it's a lot of one-on-ones.
Facing a 3rd and 2 here. Williams, flag. Somehow he got the first down, at least for the moment. But this is in the area where it's usually holding on the offense.
Holding. Number 7. Half the distance to the goal. Automatic first down.
Correction on the defense and Maverick Hansen.
Trying to see maybe. Oh, there he goes. Grabs right there on the inside, trying to keep one of his linebackers uncovered. Here's the inside football on that one. We used to tell the big guys up front, hey, why don't you grab a little piece of that guy so he doesn't climb and get up on me, because you can handle him better than I can. And you're not really supposed to do that. Got caught on that one.
And it moves the football inside the 10, first and goal. Inside of 40 seconds left in third quarter that once again has been dominated by Minnesota, just like the first two. And Ibrahim just went over 100 yards rushing.
There it is.
That is now 13 consecutive games that Ibrahim has accomplished that.
The thing for me that is most impressive about that, he had the injury last year, which was very difficult, but outside of that, he's been a volume back. I mean, this guy who averages probably around 30 carries a game, to be able to go out there and continually get the tough yards. Because sometimes it's a 1-yard game, sometimes it's a 20, but he does it.
Look at that company since 2000 behind Zeke and Sean Green. All Minnesota through 3. Well, across the Big Ten today, coaches are wearing the logo of Coach to Cure MD to raise awareness of Duchenne muscular dystrophy, the most prolific genetic killer affecting young men. And fans can learn more about this cause at CoachToCureMD.org. You can make a one-time donation of $25 on your next mobile phone bill by texting the word CURE to 501-501. PJ Fleck. First game as a head coach was here at Spartan Stadium back in 2013 when he was at Western Michigan. Lost that one. He's 0 for 3 here, but 15 minutes away from changing that. Ibrahim gets another opportunity, and down to the 4. Third and goal.
I know football people don't love moral victories. I can't stand moral victories, but a stand here for Michigan State's defense, I think, goes a long way in terms of putting on some tape and being able to build. So those guys have to have in the back of their mind a little bit of that pride conversation right now. What can we do to get this stopped?
And PJ Fleck is going to sprint down and take a timeout here.
Minnesota, their first of the half.
We'll take it with them. Third and goal coming up. Gophers' upcoming schedule brought to you by Fubo. So their crossover games are today at Penn State and then Rutgers.
Penn State's going to be the challenging one there. I think Rutgers is on the rise, but the way that Minnesota's played up to this point, they can certainly handle a team like Rutgers. I mean, look at the rest of the West. This is a year where they can be an Indy. And if they're not, to me, I'd be kind of shocked.
Third and goal. Trying to add to this 24-0 lead. Morgan looking left, fires that way, caught, another touchdown. Daniel Jackson, 30-0 Minnesota. The clinic continues.
And this is a great job, too. Ball location is awesome, but Jackson coming back to the ball, exactly what you'd want to see him do on that route right there. And Minnesota, again, all day, whether it's a run game, whether it's a pass game, they've had it.
They've run 59 total plays in this game. They have not been sacked. They have not punted the football. They have dominated time of possession. And their 2 touchdowns in this half have both come off of Michigan State turnovers. So they have taken advantage of those opportunities as well. And look, it is only week 4. And the first 3 games we know was against lesser competition. This was not against bad competition. Michigan State is a solid team. Last championship in the Big Ten for Minnesota, 1967. You said it. Could this be the year that they change that?
I think this is the year they should be in Indy. Everything that we've seen so far leads me to that. Again, this offense, it seems like, has great rhythm in the pass game. We know that their run game is going to be really good. And we haven't seen a ton of shots of their defense because they're not on the field very often. This is a really good defense that goes back to last year, statistically, one of the best defenses in the country a year ago. It's the same thing right now. So as I look at the landscape of the West, are there going to be some competitors? Sure. I think Illinois may be on the rise. You got Purdue that I think is a good team offensively. Defensively, they've gotten better, but they've done things to hurt themselves. Minnesota's in the driver's seat.
Joshua, Minnesota isn't just good because it dominates in the areas where it tries to dominate. That's the run game. PJ Fleck is somewhat underrated still as a coach, even with a couple of 9-win seasons in the last few years. You look up at the stats today, they built this lead not on the ground through the air with the offensive line. They did it through the air with that pass game. Tanner Morgan hitting 10 different receivers. That is taking what the opposition gives you. They went into this game knowing that Michigan State struggled stopping the pass, and even without Chris Autman-Bell, they are able to do what they've done today through the air. To me, that is the sign of a championship team. When you can go against or at least a little bit outside your identity and still be this dominant, it's a scary thought for the rest of the Big Ten West.
It is a scary thought, Rick. I love you bringing that up because they have 33 rushes today. You look at the passes, 26 that they've thrown. This is a team that runs the ball 70% of the time. This is not a 70% imbalance right there. So it's a little bit more balanced up because they knew the opportunities were going to be there. And that's where it's dangerous, because if I'm a defensive coordinator, I look at an offense that can hurt you both ways. I don't know how I'm going to game plan for it. They got weapons everywhere.
Michigan State completes to the tight end Tyler Hunt. Dave Repson, Jerry DiNardo, Howard Griffith will recap the entire day of Big Ten football on the final drive presented by Auto Owners Insurance. That's later tonight at 11 Eastern on the Big Ten Network. What a performance by the Gophers. Thorne out to Coleman. And Coleman to the 45. A very late flag flies in at the end of this.
After the play was over, offense, number 79, 15-yard penalty from the end of the run, second down.
Left tackle Jarrett Horst, and that's the last thing that Mel Tucker wants to see right now in a 31-0 game.
You know, it's a frustration move when players get these personal fouls at the end of a play. Things aren't going your way. You haven't had success all day long. And it's the last thing that you need to do, like you said. They're in a bad spot. I know the game is out of hand, but maturity is showing that you can control your emotions in that situation.
Thorne pumps and tries to go underneath. Just nothing going right. Incomplete to Malik Carr. Well, tomorrow we got a great volleyball matchup. Top 10. Gophers and the defending national champs, Wisconsin. Coverage begins 8 Eastern tomorrow, powered by Unleaded 88. You can watch it Big Ten Network, but also on the Fox Sports app. Rick talked about PJ Fleck and what a good coach he is. Sometimes people get a little tired of some of his slogans and row the boat, but the bottom line is he's a 41-year-old that has accomplished a lot, and his players love to play for him. We're seeing that again today. And I mentioned that when he came in here in 2013 as a first-time head coach, he was 32 years old. And I said, what would 41-year-old PJ Fleck want to say to 32-year-old PJ Fleck? And he said, I would tell him you can't control everything. Trust the people on your staff and the people around you. And he's done that. He empowers his coordinators and his coaches, and it shows.
He said the more you let go and you delegate, the more power you actually have. And I see it when we go to watch them practice in the summer. It's one of the great pleasures I have. And I think Michigan State has a really good practice. I love what Mel Tucker does. PJ Fleck as well. I mean, It's a fast practice. These guys are on point. They communicate. He puts them in pressure situations. It's really good football.
4th and 13 here, and they do convert. So Mel Tucker's saying, well, we're down 31. Might as well go for it. And Jaden Reed gets just enough to keep the drive alive. Now there's a flag coming in here, so hang on.
Ineligible player downfield. Number 59. 5-yard penalty. 4th down.
Man, it's been a tough day in every way. Another penalty on that offensive line. This one on Nick Samac, the center.
And, you know, when you start extending these plays, the offensive linemen, they don't know if the quarterback's going to pull it down. You stay latched on to your blocking responsibility, and all of a sudden you're 4 or 5 yards down the field. It's an awareness thing. It's a feel thing. It's difficult, but in that situation, you have to be on point. Michigan State has struggled with some of the detailed things going back to last week, and it keeps hurting them.
So now, instead of converting on 4th and 13, they punt on 4th and 18 as Behringer unloads. And it's fair caught by Quentin Redding. 12:25 left. Still to come, more football. Purdue and Florida Atlantic. Some will see Northwestern and Miami. It's presented by Hampton by Hilton at 7:30 tonight. Today's Mayhem Moment brought to you by Allstate. Take you back to the end of the first half. There was one more play because he stepped out with 1 second left, Trey Potts did. So after Minnesota had gone to the locker room, Michigan State,
everybody get back out there.
They all came back and then
just to kneel it
down to a knee.
And then you run back
and then back you go.
Sure. Yeah.
Minnesota was all smiles at intermission. They were up 17-0, now up 31-0. And they've got the football back here with 12:25 to play. Potts is in the backfield. I'd be surprised if we saw Mo Ibrahim again at this point, but we'll see. Minnesota, 429 yards of offense.
Yeah, I mean, they've done it both ways, on the ground, through the air. Offensive line deserves a ton of credit, not only for creating those lanes in the run game, but for keeping a clean pocket. Tanner Morgan has had all day. He's been on point. And then a great comeback route right here. They're showing you everything that's in their playbook. People who want to say this is a run-the-football team know they can throw it. And we don't even see the defense, but 0 on the scoreboard for Michigan State. This is a complete football team.
Trying to get their first shutout against Michigan State since 1967, and their first ever shutout against the Spartans in East Lansing. Potts slips through, first down. Eventually, Amir Speed gets him to the ground.
You know, one of the things that Mel Tucker had talked to us about is how tough this is for him, not being able to find those answers and the right personnel groupings and, you know, just the right mix on defense and the amount of time that he spent at the facility trying to get it together. And it's a balance because his defense has to understand that when they're not playing well and not doing their job, it affects the offense. And I've talked about the time of possession and how that works. But I know when he gets back to the facility after this game, he's just going to be racking his mind. And it's a little bit tough for me to understand, too, because here's a guy who wants to play aggressive, and they're just not getting the job done.
Flags fly. Mel Tucker said when he came back from Washington, he did not go home until Wednesday. He slept in his office 3 straight nights.
False start. Offense. Number 77. 5-yard penalty. First down.
And he does have a bed set up there, but it just goes to show you he is dedicated to this job.
Yeah, I mean, this defense isn't where it is. It's not lack of trying on Mel Tucker's behalf. You mentioned the amount of time he's spending at the facility. When you flip on the tape, he's trying different personnel groupings. He's trying different things schematically, and it's still not happening. And I've watched this team practice. They practice well. They go hard. I love the drill work that they do. And it's just not showing up on game day.
First and 15 after the penalty. Another tote for Trey Potts. Well, Mel Tucker, what he told his team this week was, hey, all of our goals are still in front of us, and that is championships, but things get a little tougher if you fall to 2-2. I mean, remember, a team that went 11-2 last year, and now you're going to have 2 losses in the span of 8 days.
And as you look down the schedule, We know what Michigan has looked like early on and had some struggles against Maryland, but got the win. We'll see what Ohio State looks like tonight against Wisconsin, but that's been a great team early on. Penn State has opened up many eyes, maybe had a little hangover from a week ago with their performance today, but I mean, there are some really good teams in the East that they're going to have to face down the line here.
Keeping it on the ground. And look at Potts. I mean, whether it's Ibrahim, Potts, Williams, they're just running through these defenders. Third down and short coming up. Mention what the Spartans have coming up, and it'll be at Maryland next weekend.
Maryland, talk about another team who's going to challenge them right where they have a weakness in this passing defense. I mean, Leah Tungavailoa, we know he can put up numbers. They've got wide receivers all over the place. They've got a couple of running backs now that are downhill threats, but they also like to use them in the pass. I mean, it's a tough matchup that they're going to face. They're going to have the same problems week to week. It's just how much better can you get throughout game week so Saturday you can take another step.
What a tough October that is. After Maryland, you got Ohio State, Wisconsin, and then Michigan. Bouncing to the outside, another first down. But Minnesota, I said it, in the first three games, they outscored their opponents 149-17. So you factor this in, it's 180-17 so far with them and their opponents.
I mean, a lot of points on one end, not very many on the other. I don't know what else you want me to say. It's been really good football out of this Golden Gophers team for the first 4 weeks of the season.
And they came in ranked second in the country, not only in total offense, but also total defense. And people thought, but that won't stick. Well, looks like it might stick for at least another week.
And I know there were going to be questions about what this offense could be at its top end. Kirk Shiraka, the offensive coordinator, coming back. And I think we expected it to get better. I certainly did, and it has. But this idea that their defense wasn't going to be that good or we had to wait and see, I keep going back to this fact that it was one of the best statistical defenses in the country a year ago. Nobody talked about it. And so they've just picked up where they left off. And whether it's the competition that they saw in the first three games, which we know wasn't very good, or a Michigan State team that's got some chess pieces that a lot of teams across the country would like to have, they have dominated.
Yeah, that's the word for today. Third down now from the 41. It's their fifth drive of over 5 minutes. And look at this. There you go. Just 5.7 points a game. It's entering today. They're trying to improve on that number. Three teams from the Big Ten at the top of the list. Although, as you noted, Maryland did put up a few more points on Michigan today, but Michigan's still getting the win, staying undefeated. Straight ahead, first down and more for Cole Kramer, the backup quarterback, who last year played a lot of Wildcat for them and showed his running skills there. They're 10 of 11 on third down today. They came into this game 78% on third down conversions. Now, as a barometer, 60% is usually where the national leader is at the end of the year. That's ridiculous.
It's ridiculous, and I think it's indicative of a mentality, because that is a critical down. It's a gotta-have-it situation. Third down, what are you going to do to keep the drive going? And it's a part of their DNA to sustain long drives, so they just make a decision that they're going to execute whatever's called in the huddle. And over 70% of the time, they've been doing that.
Again, the backup quarterback Kramer is out there. He hands it to Potts, and guess what? Another 10-plus yard play, another first down. Morgan is back out there, so they only had Kramer out there for one play. I thought they were taking Tanner off for the day, but not to be. What a game for Tanner Morgan. He has as many touchdown passes as he does incompletions. 23 to 26.
It's the efficiency. And again, we expected his pass production to go up with Kirk Ciarrocca back. And it's the fact that they give him windows now that are easier to throw into. They put defenders in conflict. It's everything that...
An injured player.
Another injured player for Michigan State.
Timeout on the
Maverick
field.
Hansen is down. We'll step aside. Football on the Big Ten Network is brought to you by State Farm. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. That's about the only thing that they've enjoyed today here in East Lansing. 31-0 Minnesota in the fourth quarter with just over 5 minutes left.
I mean, this Minnesota offense, 503 total yards, only 3 plays of 20 or more. PJ Fleck talks about breaking boring. That's what they do. It can be mundane. It doesn't matter because it works for them.
Morgan is out of the game as Kramer's back in there. I mentioned last year he ran a lot of wildcat plays. He does it again there and picks up the first. Redshirt junior played in the first 3 games in mop-up duty. Native of the Twin Cities from Eden Prairie. And take a bow, Tanner Morgan. 6-year senior. By the way, got married July 9th. Now married to his wife, Sarah. So when we talk about veterans and older players, he's seeing a different side of life while still in college.
He is. I mean, we got married guys out there playing, and congratulations. There were a couple over the Big Ten that got married over the summer. You got, 24-year-olds out there. I'm 28 years old.
Minnesota. They're second of the half.
PJ takes a timeout. We'll be right back.
Timeout on the field.
I think that they will be ranked this week. By the way, 2013, last time Minnesota played here, PJ Fleck mentioned he was 32, first season as a Western Michigan head coach. Mel Tucker was with the Bears. Tanner Morgan was a freshman in high school, and Peyton Thorne was just 12 years old.
We're talking about how veteran some of the Minnesota players are. I think that's the perfect analogy there. Tanner Morgan, freshman in high school. Peyton Thorne, just a little middle schooler.
And speaking of freshmen, the freshman is in at quarterback now. Ethan Kaliakmanis. He's going to hand it off to Potts here. Potts nowhere to go. So 2013, last time they played here. I said it earlier, but the last time they've won here was 2006. Michigan State has won the last 5 in this series, 8 straight at home. But that's not going to be the story today. The 13th play of the drive, a drive that is creeping up towards 9 minutes. Just to put this thing on ice. Potts again. And down to the 4. Coming up after the game, Big Ten Live Football postgame presented by State Farm, breaking down all the action with Dave, Jerry, and Howard, who you just saw a moment ago from our Chicago studio. So Michigan State last week was ranked 11th. Then they lost to Washington. They fell all the way out of the rankings. But as those guys were talking about, if Minnesota's not in the top 25 come Monday, I'd be very, very surprised.
I said this publicly. I thought Minnesota should have been top 25 coming into this week as well. I've been really high on this team for a while. I think this is the statement, and folks, of course, point to Michigan State's struggles. They dominated, handled business like pros. This is one of the best teams in college football this year, certainly deserving of a top 25 ranking.
Potts, though, cannot get near the goal line. That'll bring up 4th and goal. 14-play drive that's over 10 minutes now. If you're looking at it from Minnesota and PJ Fleck's perspective, it's kind of the icing on the cake for how today has gone.
Yes, and eat up all of the time, and you don't get into the end zone. So as a coach, you have something to fuss about when you break down the tape. Hey, guys, we should have scored on that last drive. But, again, everything that you would like to do today, PJ Fleck has done for Minnesota.
22-yarder for Trickett. He hit from 26 earlier. No problem there. 3 more onto the ledger. 34-0. And we will step aside for 30 seconds.
The new 2023 GMC Sierra AT4X is equipped to conquer the great outdoors. Or the great indoors. Welcome to the peak of premium off-roading. The new 2023 GMC Sierra AT4X. GMC, we are professional grade.
The Big Ten Live football postgame presented by State Farm. After the game.
Mo Ibrahim over there, he did his work, over 100 yards for a 13th straight game, and Minnesota's done it on both sides. 34-0. 1:48 left. They're going to kick it back to Michigan State. You got to think that that defense is feeling a lot of pride to get a shutout here today.
Oh, there's going to be pride on the line. I know from a personnel management standpoint, you don't put your starters back on there defensively, and it's tough because you got to find ways to get those guys reps too. They've played 37 plays. But you want to make sure that you maintain this shutout, so we'll see how they come out onto the field here.
There's just so many numbers that we've provided and showed, but just staggering offensive and defensive numbers for Minnesota through 4 weeks. As Michigan State will bring on their backup, Noah Kim. Rough day for Peyton Thorne after they felt like he made progress, their starting quarterback last week at Washington, but 2 interceptions and a fumble loss today before turning it over to the redshirt sophomore Kim.
I mean, some of it was, were there a couple of bad plays in there? I think so. Were there a couple of plays where I thought he should have made a different decision? Yes. Was he totally out of rhythm? 100%, and that's part of it too. As you break down the tape, it's hard to analyze because you'll look at the plays in a vacuum, but you have to understand what he's up against. He's pressing, he's not in rhythm, and that's a bad position for a quarterback to be in.
Kim completes his first pass to Carr. Stay tuned. Big Ten Live football postgame presented by State Farm coming up here shortly. Kim now 2 for 2. And some of those backups in there defensively, but you can tell they're trying to preserve that shutout. Second and 2, back-to-back catches for Cade McDonald. His first 2 grabs of the year for the redshirt junior. So Michigan State will go to Maryland next to try to bounce back. Minnesota will host Purdue. Easy pitch and catch, but there's that defense rallying, stopping Elijah College for a short gain.
It's a really good break on the football too, and I mentioned that when the ones were in the game, but it's a swarming style of defense. These guys understand as soon as the ball comes out the quarterback's hands, find the receiver, let's take a shot at the football.
Kim looking all over the place with a clean pocket and incomplete in the direction once again of McDonald. I think it's going to be a tough week of practice, though, here in East Lansing. And for P.J. Fleck, when his guys take the flight home, it'll be all smiles.
It'll be a lot of smiles. I've had those types of plane rides home. It's really fun. Then you get back, you have a Sunday practice, and Coach Fleck told us that he lets his guys do it. But Mariano Sori-Marin will be calling the defense for the young guys, and Tanner Morgan will be calling it for the vets. And that's how he's created this team mentality, and they love it.
Kim is just going to step out of bounds. Yeah, he calls it Sunday night football. The guys who don't get much playing time play on Sunday night. As you mentioned, those guys are the coordinators. He said we haven't been able to do it the first 3 weeks, though, because those guys got in, the guys that don't normally play, because they were all blowouts.
He's trying to manage the reps. You know, how much do you put on your guys? And the young guys will practice this week. One of the funny things he said is now some of the veteran players who have been around, they understand what we go through on the sideline. If a call gets in late or maybe you don't like the call, now you understand what we're going through as coaches, and it creates a different perspective for older veteran players that have understanding of football.
3 catches on this drive now for McDonald. So the only intrigue is, will Michigan State get on the scoreboard here? 25 seconds. Kim lets it fly for the end zone, and they will score. Jeremy Bernard, the true freshman, brings it in. So Minnesota will not get their shutout.
To see a little isolation on this one. It's just a one-on-one matchup here. You got the corner sinking. Looks like it might have been a cover 2 if that safety gets over. That window's not there. The corner didn't look like he was supposed to be in man-to-man, but Michigan State finding the end zone extremely late in the game. I know Minnesota probably not happy they gave the shutout up, but overall, body of work today, you'll take that.
Yeah, I think you'll still take it. 34-7. We'll step aside for 30 seconds and be back for the final 17 ticks. Well, Minnesota's last shutout in a conference game, you have to go all the way back to 2004 against Illinois, and they came within 17 seconds of doing it here, but Michigan State gets the touchdown. When this game concludes, Rick will talk to P.J. Fleck about the victory. And Purdue, when they go to play at Minnesota next week, I think the Boilermakers, that is going to be a tough task.
It's going to be a tough task, and Minnesota put so many different concepts on tape. It's going to be difficult. Now, here's an advantage that Purdue might have, though, is they've seen so little of the Minnesota defense, so you don't know what you want to do against them necessarily, but you've seen what their bread and butter is, and you can scheme all that up. When they go to the bag of tricks, now you make the adjustment. So, you know, those guys haven't had a ton of reps. You can try to scheme them on their base stuff to hurt them and see if they can adjust.
Down to a knee, and that will do it. Minnesota, in dominant fashion, gets their first win in East Lansing since 2006. They go to 4-0, and they will very likely find themselves in the national rankings in 48 hours. Mo Ibrahim over 100 yards. Everybody contributed. Tanner Morgan was spectacular. It was just a complete performance.
It was a complete performance. We talk about it, offense, defense, even special teams, as little as they were out there on the football field, all doing their job. P.J. Fleck has to be very happy with the direction of his program. On the other side for Mel Tucker, more questions unanswered today than you got answered, and that's a very hard spot to be in as a head coach.